While talk about Akin Akinozu's rumored new romance was heating up, Ebru Şahin walked straight into the fire with a declaration that felt like a spark tossed into dry grass. It's very new. You're tuned into Turkish Spotlight Secrets, the place where whispers turn into stories and stories turn into headlines. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed and ready, because what we're about to unpack isn't just a passing rumor. It's a timeline, a mood, a collision of careers and hearts that's taken over the conversation. The timing was no accident to anyone watching closely. While Akın Akinozu's name was making the rounds with social media phenomenon Selin Yagsioglu, a wave of hints, sightings, and breathless captions, Ebru Şahin returned from London and broke the silence many thought she'd keep for months. She faced the cameras at Istanbul airport, eyes steady, voice warm but measured, and gave an answer that carried enough meaning to keep every gossip page busy for days. She didn't dodge. She didn't paint pretty pictures. She kept it simple. It's new. New enough not to label, new enough to protect, but not so new that she couldn't own it. And this wasn't a confession floating in a vacuum. The names orbiting this moment lifted it beyond ordinary gossip. Onur Güvenadam. The powerful producer, the force behind OGM Pictures, has been the center of quiet speculation for a while. He's also the man who shepherded Akın Akinozu's recently concluded series, Karpinti. That detail alone pulled the conversation into sharper focus. Was this a random intersection of paths, or the kind of connected overlap that only this industry can create? The whispers said Ebru and Onur weren't strangers to shared circles. They'd crossed paths at industry dinners, at festivals abroad, even in London, the city that suddenly feels like a character in this story, a place where friendships blur into something more under soft winter light and busy itineraries. Let's rewind to the moment at the airport. Ebru, back from London, moved through the arrivals hall the way only a star used to attention can, calmly, decisively, neither hiding nor courting the lens. She kept her tone controlled and gentle, as if refusing to let anyone else set the rhythm of her life. At first, she gave the kind of measured phrases we've come to expect from someone who's been judged for every choice. But then she let the guard down just a fraction, and the words spilled with intention. It's fresh, it's just starting, and perhaps people should wait before making verdicts that sound like sentences. It was as if she drew a thin line in the air and said, I'll tell you as much as I want, but don't step over. Immediately, the comment sections lit up. Was this a coincidence, or a mirror held up to the buzz around Akın? Because on the other side of town, Akın Akinozu has been under his own spotlight. His link with Selin Yagsioglu came alive not through declarations but patterns, the same venues, the same nights, soft edges of stories that never quite become statements. He didn't confirm, didn't deny, and to some, that kind of perfectly controlled quiet feels like strategy. The mystery lingers, and in that haze, Ebru's clear sentence landed like a bell. Transparent but not needy. Honest but not explosive. A message to her fans, to her critics, and maybe to someone else watching from a distance. The debate that followed was split. Some said Ebru had chosen her timing with precision, that very new was an answer and a challenge all at once, closing the chapter on the guessing games and raising 1,000 more. Others believed it was simply what it appeared to be, life unfolding, two people moving forward in directions that happened to intersect with headlines. Still, the rhythm online was undeniable. She answered him, some wrote, implying that a woman's declaration must always mirror a man's gossip. She set her boundary, wrote others, hearing in her tone the tired patience of someone who's been told one too many times to be quiet about her feelings. In the midst of this, the industry detail no one could ignore was the presence of Onur Güvenadam. OGM Pictures stands like a skyscraper on the horizon of Turkish television, and the recent finale of Karpinti made him part of Akın's professional story too. That single thread, producer, project, actor, is what turned curiosity into a storm. People began piecing together past appearances, the charity galas, the whispers about a London project. The storyline almost wrote itself. Proximity becomes a flicker, flicker becomes a flame. If they've been orbiting the same rooms for months, maybe very new isn't sudden at all, maybe it's just finally visible. but what exactly did Ebru mean? When she said people should hold their judgment, it sounded less like defiance and more like a plea for decency. Shouldn't I be allowed to meet someone? That was the heart of her sentiment, stripped of the noise. She didn't play the wounded ex. She didn't jab at anyone. She offered a soft defense that doubled as a manifesto. Her past doesn't control the map of her future, and getting to know someone, even someone powerful, isn't a scandal. It's life. For many women watching, the message resonated, an actress asking not for special treatment, but for fair treatment. Meanwhile, Akin's camp maintained a studied quiet. No statements, no clarifications, just the hum of work and the occasional appearance that hints at more without giving it away. It's the kind of silence that invites stories to bloom in the gaps. Is there a PR plan? Are they holding cards for a perfect reveal? Or is it simply a man choosing privacy in a world that wants full access? Whatever the reason, the quiet made Ebru's openness feel even louder. She broke the equilibrium and accepted the consequences. And in the immediate aftermath, the internet did what it always does, it split into teams. One crowd insisted it was a strategic counter to Akin's rumored new beginning with Selin Yagsioglu, that Ebru's words were a measured reply disguised as romantic transparency. They pointed to London, to the timing, to the effortless way her comments slipped into trending lists. Another crowd refused to believe in conspiracies. Maybe things just happen. Maybe an old love story can end without turning into a blueprint for the future. Maybe she waited not for the right headline, but for the right feeling, that fragile stretch of time where something is real enough to acknowledge, but tender enough to need protection. Let's talk implications. If the path Ebru is tracing does indeed connect with Onur Guvanatum, the ripple effect in the industry could be serious and subtle at once. OGM Pictures has the power to shift careers with a single green light, and Ebru's international presence makes her a rare asset in co-production conversations. Whispers behind closed doors suggest that meetings in London weren't only about hearts, they could have been about scripts, budgets, partnerships. A drama that begins at a business table doesn't always end there. Maybe that's the real story within the story. Two people who speak the same language of work and ambition, finding something personal in the overlap. And what of Carpinti? That series, with its pace and profile, was a professional milestone that linked Akin Akinozu to OGM's orbit, even if only for a season. Now, with the finale in the rearview, it becomes a reference point people won't stop citing. Is this messy? Inevitably. In entertainment, personal and professional lines blur not because people are careless, but because the spaces are small, the stakes are big, and the hours are long. You go where the projects are, and sometimes that means you end up where the feelings are too. There's a thread running through all of this that Ebru made clear without saying it outright: she's tired of being punished for moving on. For years, every step she took was weighed against a past that wouldn't let her walk freely. When she said, in essence, "I don't owe anyone solitude," it felt like a breath leaving a room that had been holding it too long. As a star, she carries the light and the heat; as a woman, she deserves not to be burned by it. That's what many heard in those few words, a quiet assertion of autonomy. So where does this leave Akin? He's working, he's living, he's letting the narrative do what it will. If he is indeed close with Selin Yagsioglu, perhaps they're choosing to build something away from the volume knob of the press. Or perhaps the rumors are simply a projection, a story people want to see because it fits the rhythm of the moment. In the absence of clarity, every look is a clue and every coincidence is a sign. But until he speaks, the only undeniable truth is that he hasn't spoken. That silence says less than people want it to, and that might be the point. Will Ebru's potential link with Onur reshape casting rooms, negotiation tables, the quiet calculus of what comes next? It's possible. It might open doors for her within OGM, or it might not change a thing, because her rise has been her own, and she doesn't need a man's last name or company letterhead to validate it. Still, this industry loves a narrative, and right now, the prevailing one is irresistible. A woman writes a sentence about fate, and suddenly everyone wants to read her future. Is the chapter of Akın and Ebru truly closed? Judging by their actions, yes. Not with bitterness, but with maturity. They're both walking forward, choosing not to compete for center stage in each other's lives. Fans will always hold on to what was, that's the nature of a love story lived so publicly. But the people inside it, the ones who hung their coats in the same hallway and now hang them somewhere else, they get to decide when the page turns. And on this page, at least, Ebru's handwriting is clear: new beginnings belong to the ones who claim them. Here's the part that stings for some and soothes others: maybe there isn't a mastermind plan. Maybe the timing that looks so sharp from the outside feels natural from the inside. One romance whispered into the air, another acknowledged under airport lights, and suddenly it looks like a dance. But life isn't choreography, and love rarely takes cues from headlines. If fate has a hand in it, as Ebru hinted, then it isn't fate as an excuse, it's fate as a way of saying, I'm accepting what comes without apologizing for wanting it. Of course, social media isn't finished. It never is. Every hour, a new thread, a new angle, a new theory. Some are kind, some are cruel, and some are simply tired. But across platforms, one sentiment has grown louder: let them live. If she has found a connection worth protecting, protect it. If he has found one worth exploring, explore it. Stories ferment in the dark, relationships do better in the light you choose for them. Public figures don't owe us their hearts, only their work. And yet here we are, parsing syllables for signs. The last note belongs to the airport declaration because it set the tone. Soft, not defensive. Firm, not combative. The kind of honesty that makes room for doubt but not for shame. It's very new, she said, and that was enough. Enough to start a new cycle. Enough to quiet the old one. Enough to remind us that the first days of anything beautiful are fragile, that they don't need a press release to be real. Some people call that a clapback. I call it a line drawn with grace. So, what now? We watch. We wait. We listen for the next tiny shift in the soundtrack, a shared glance at a premiere, a project announcement that lands a little too neatly, a moment in London that repeats itself under a different sky. Maybe an OGM co-production with Ebru at the center appears on the slate. Maybe Akın unveils a new role that takes him further from the noise and closer to the kind of work that made people watch him in the first place. Maybe the sullen conversation fades or becomes official. Maybe nothing happens, and this is it, the moment that mattered, the statement that stood. Either way, the story holds. It holds because it has all the pieces gossip lives for: history, momentum, power, timing. It holds because the players are magnetic and the stakes feel real. And it holds because, beneath everything, there are two people trying to live in public without surrendering the parts of themselves that belong in private. Call it coincidence. Call it symmetry. Call it fate. Whatever name you choose, it's the same melody played in a new key, and right now, everyone's leaning in to hear how it ends. You've been watching Turkish Spotlight Secrets, where the curtains never stay closed for long. Tell me, was Ebru's timing a response, or simply her truth on her terms? Do you think Akın's silence is a strategy or a shield? Drop your thoughts, tap subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what comes next. In this world, the backstage is always louder than the stage, and we'll be here to translate the echoes.